The great Bill Withers. He's phenomenal. That's a great song, too. And sung well, and nice job. Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a beacon of progressive religious thought here in the South Bay. We do not have a children's moment today. We'll sing out the kids right after the children's hymn, just because we have a long service and we have a new member ceremony. We're inducting a number of people into the church, so, yeah, that's great. And, there'll be where the slaughtering of the lambs will take place after the service. The ritual, the real good stuff takes place a lot later. Like midnight mass. I think the microphone's a little loud. We could turn that down just a bit. In tribute to the hardworking people who built this church 64 years ago, I would encourage people to turn off their cell phones. They built this beautiful building without social media or tweets or, beeps and now I think it's time. I think we can greet our neighbors. Can we greet our neighbors? Stand up and greet your neighbor. That's an old great tradition of ours. Oh. Okay, pagans, settle down. Settle down. So we have a number of announcements today. Andy is going to start us off with a pitch for DeBenneville, which is creeping up on us now. Take it away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to church this Sunday. My name is Andy Kistner. I am your camp dean for Camp DeBenneville Pines. Camp DeBenneville Pines is our camp. We own it as a church, along with all the other churches in the Pacific Southwest District. And this year, we get to go back to camp, which is awesome. I was just up there 2 weeks ago. It was beautiful. It was sacred, as always, a wonderful sacred space. Our camp is June 10, 11, and 12th. We have 3 wonderful days up there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Anybody interested in attending camp, come and see me, and I will provide you with a flyer. And then if you have questions, you can send us an email. Thank you very much, and thank you all for supporting camp.
We're getting ready for the auction. Please come to our table and get more information about it. It is Memorial Day weekend on the Saturday, May 28th. Next Sunday, will be about the last time that you can get your donations in to go into the catalog. We have an addendum, always last-minute things, but we really want them in the catalog. If you go out to the table, you'll see old catalogs to give yourself an idea what you might donate. The party starts, I believe it's 5 o'clock until 8, and it's really exciting. Food, drinks, and a lot of exciting bidding and wondering whether I'm going to get it or not. It's fun. If you can't be there, someone in the committee can bid for you, or you can find a friend to give a few items and the highest amount that you would be willing to go. Anyway, we can do that for you. Please come and please find things that you can donate. Thank you.
So we have a busy week here around at the ranch, as I like to say. If you've got postcards to promote democracy, this is the week to mail them in. And a lot of people have been sitting on them for a while, so mail those in. We're going to look for some teachers for OWL coming up. We're going to probably host OWL in the fall, and then we're looking for another group. So if you're interested in being a teacher, please do that. And let's see, this week we have Seekers. We have the Senior Covenant group on Tuesday, Seekers on Wednesday. We might have an arts and crafts group forming. That's a little bit hard to know at the moment, but we've got a lot going on. On Friday night, we have We have a Lydia Maria Childs movie, which is a Unitarian Universe. It's a long movie. Constance is going to be here it's her movie, and we're going to see it as our justice film. She is a filmmaker, and Lydia Maria Childs is sort of a hero, suffragette, all those good things you can be back in the 1800s. So she was all that and more. She had an amazing social media profile before there even was one. So that's at 7 on Friday. There's also a hike on Friday morning, and we're starting on the following Saturday, the 14th, we're starting an ecology series that's going to be 5 parts. Naresh is going to talk about Earth systems from satellites. His wife Susan's going to talk about the geopolitics of NGOs and where we stand. I'm going to do a piece on the sort of historic philosophy of humans, all in the next 5 weeks on Saturdays. So we're back to adult education programming. I'm going to sneak in a couple things that could be joys or concerns. Where's Craig? Craig, come on up. Craig has been our treasurer here, and I made a golden calculator for him. It's just what he needs. I've been spray painting things, and in the same spirit, Judy Carter is our former membership chair, and she gets a gold. For about 5 or so years 5 years roughly, 6. Wow, hey, easy. All right. I think that's about most of it. Anyway, so the auction is a big deal coming up. Save your Saturday night, May 5th, and the last Saturday in May, and think about what you can offer. Dinners. I'm going to buy some baseball tickets and host people to come to that. Like, just do things. There's also Beatle tickets for sale, which are May. I don't know what date that is, but I bought 8 tickets, and we're auction 14th, Saturday night the 14th. So. If you want to go see the Beatles with a bunch of friends, we'll probably organize a dinner before that. There's 4 left. Come see the auction table. All right, Catherine is going to read our chalice words, and I'm going to light our chalice. Come on up.
May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know, once again, that we are not isolated beings, but connected by sinew and seawater, in mystery and miracle, to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay. I'm going to talk about paganism today, so you're going to get a white, historically, theologically, classically trained person telling you all about paganism. It is probably as bad as, cultural adoption as there is, but I think you might learn something, and I'll save all my fancy words for later. Let's stand and sing our opening hymn, Wake Now, My Senses, 298. Shayna promised to sing well today, so let's do it.
Oh, jeez.
Now compassion, give heed
to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the white sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
That one always gets me. I'm not sure why. It must be those low piano tones, or what is it that makes a song so moving?
It's a great melody.
Huh?
Great melody, that's what
Great
it is.
melody. There we go. Heard from the man. Let's sing out our children, if there are any in the room. I can't necessarily see any. There we are. Singing out our children.
Here we go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
It is now time for our new member ceremony, and Robin is going to take over. Melissa is going to come down at some point and share her presidential duties. Judy Carter is going to be a part of this. Joni Thompson is going to come down and laurel the best of you, and
Barbara.
and we sign the book. And Barbara, yeah. We have a pen that was taken from the Mayflower that people sign the book with, so, you know, let's hope it works.
Could the new members please come forward and go over there? Sorry. Yeah. Could the new members please come forward? And we're missing a few, but come on down. And
Stand-
just, if you
stand in the middle.
Line up here.
Yeah. Now is the time in the service that we honor our newest members and their decision to join our church family. Would all new members please join us in a chair right in front, which they have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Will the present members of PUC welcome these people into our congregation?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we all stand up and we can read from the back of the program?
Yep. On the back of on the order of service.
Okay, will you, the members of the congregation, reach out to them in friendship, including them in our activities and fellowship? Will you be open to their unique gifts and perspectives? Will you extend a warm welcome to each of them, remembering that each of us was once a new member?
Yes. We join our strengths, talents, and commitment with yours. You are part of us, and we are part of you. Our vision is to be an open-minded spiritual community that celebrates diversity and lives successfully with both its gifts and challenges. We seek to understand and appreciate the great diversity of people and ideas in the world. Yeah. Okay.
So as the board president,
You got to turn the microphone on.
sorry, one moment, please.
I can hear.
Got to hold it in.
All that really matters. No.
Use the one. Robin.
Heard something.
Robin.
Okay. I will speak loudly as I can. Okay, so as president, I charge you as new members to grow in your faith. More importantly, I charge you to find and share your special gifts with us. Ours is a shared ministry, with each of us having a crucial role to play. We need you. We need your energy and your ideas. Give generously of yourselves, and your rewards will be great.
It is a joy to welcome each of you into our community of memory and hope. Will you, as new members, walk together with us, sharing the joys and the responsibilities of membership? If you will, say yes.
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 Please accept our congregation's gifts and warm welcome. Each of you brings light, vitality, and renewal to our community. Thanks for officially becoming a part of us.
Together we form a beacon of hope to each other and our world as well. May our light shine brightly among us for years. Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Universalist Church. Welcome. Yeah.
Okay, as I briefly introduce you each to the congregation, please go over to our amazing team, Judy Carter and Barbara Paulson and Joni Thompson, and our board president, Melissa, to sign the membership book and get your PUC swag. PUC swag means you get your very own PUC pen, and, well, you'll see what's in the bag. And you're also going to get served an extra big slice of PUC new member cake on the patio later. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so as I'm reading, you don't have to listen to me. You can just walk over and sign, okay? Penrose Anderson first. Hi, Penrose. Penrose was, go ahead, you can go sign. Penrose was born to a British Army general and an Afro-Brazilian mother, and believes the cultural divide of her parents gave her an interest in philosophy, for which she has a doctorate. Penn is currently working on her third novel and enjoys working in voiceover. Tragically, Penn lost her daughter in 2013 and her husband in late 2018. Penrose considers herself an introvert emerging from grief and pandemic isolation, and trusts us to help her take it slowly, one conversation at a time. We at PUC are up to this challenge. Welcome, Penrose. Next is Bill Martin. Bill, you can go sign while I read about you. Bill Martin lives right around the corner from PUC and has for 24 years. Born in Huntington Beach, he lived for much of his childhood in Montana. He loves reading all kinds of music, movies, and animals. Bill has experienced a lot of loss recently and is going through a very difficult separation right now. He's looking for a supportive community at PUC, and we are excited to serve in that role for him. Welcome, Bill. Next is Jill Mick. Partners for 30 years, Jill Mick and Eric Hayes share their home with 4 rescue cats. Jill attended PUC with her parents, Marion and Bill Mick, back in the 1970s. Jill is a very active volunteer for South Bay Wildlife Rehab, Ride to Fly, and Harbor Animal Services Center. Currently at PUC, she participates in choir, Chalice Circle, food prep for seniors, postcard writing, and many of the adult RE programs, including 2 anti-racism courses. She looks forward to, again, helping with the Food Ministry Sunday Buffet program once it returns. We are so glad she is retired so she can participate in all these activities, especially the ones at PUC. Thank you, Jill. Welcome. And next we have Jabbar Stroud. Jabbar Stroud first visited PUC as part of the Black, Asian, and Pacific Islander Healing Circle. Here in LA, Jabbar gives his great energy to being an activist and community organizer committed to making our world a better place. He's the co-director of Hike to Yoga and an organizer for Black Women Leads, which does outreach to the LA homeless population. Jabbar also works for LA Voice on issues of public safety and gun violence. Here at church, he's ready to jump right into our efforts to bring diversity to PUC and improve our outreach programs. We are so excited for you to share your vision and energy here at PUC. Welcome, Jabbar. And tomorrow is Jabbar's birthday, so please yay! Yay! And just arriving in the nick of time. Thank you so much. That was perfect timing. We have Angela O and Ming Tu, who goes by Tutu. And they're Zen Buddhists who have training at the Zen Temple headquarters in Oahu. Angela and Tutu work together to expand the reach of the gift of compassion, which is about healing through meditation. Their program is part of Commonweal, best known for its cancer support retreats and its mission to heal individuals and the planet. So I'm going to start with you, Angela, if you wanted to go sign and get your swag. Angela O, formerly a criminal defense attorney and civil rights activist, is now a mediator who helps to resolve cases alleging violations of California's civil rights laws. She currently serves on the National Advisory Council of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, or DC, and the board of directors of the Korean Resource Center, and she's co-founder of the Black, Asian, and Pacific Islander Healing Circle. In fact, Angela was Friday night interviewed by Joy Reid on The Reid Show, so if you want to Google and watch that. Welcome, Angela. Tutu's work in multimedia arts, if you want to go, has led to critical acclaim, such as when he was a photojournalist in Tibet or worked for 60 Minutes in Taiwan. He now draws portraits of others, which grow out of his interconnection with people and his meditation on those connections. He's looking forward to teaching meditation here at the church. Angela and Tutu, we have benefited from your being here so much already and look forward to spending more time with you. Welcome. And our last new member can't make it today, but some of you may already have met her. Judy Rory Rook is a filmmaker who lives right around the corner from PUC. She produces documentaries. She won an Emmy. You can also look that up. And is, in fact, working on 2 more documentaries right now. One is about Ed Miskowski, an op artist. And the other is about John Muir's relatives, the Loves, a pioneering family from Wyoming. As a widow of 4 years, she bought a house in the neighborhood and began to visit the church. A lifelong Unitarian, Judy is active in our racial justice discussion groups and excited about multicultural outreach. Welcome, Judy, and we are glad you moved into the neighborhood and decided to join us when you watch this later. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. That's a strong class. I'll take them over any other class. No, that's not true. Our centering hymn is 83, Winds Be Still. Please remain seated and sing along.
Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come. Peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and and view. Help us to sense life's mystery. Fly high and far and lead us each to see how we move through the winds of eternity.
I invite anyone who wishes to come down and light a candle of joy or concern. Leanne's going to come up and I'm going to try to find something to do that I'm used to running around. sneak in a quick thought. We have a number of people doing work with people engaged or forced to migration more often than not, people who are suffering or could be qualified as refugees. And Angela and Tu were doing work just over the border with a sanctuary community that's trying to hold people together's lives and building, structures for people to live in a beautiful space. And Frank Adams is working with folks, Afghan refugees up at LAX, and we have a woman, Melinda Utall, who's connected to us somewhat vaguely, who's building a space designed in her own home or a space for people who are on the run to be moved. So, let's be engaged in that and talk to Angela about how we can be of help. So let's continue to be present to that important and will increasingly emerging issue. This is a reading called The Sacred Hoop. And I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of things of the Spirit, and the shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make the circle wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree. Let's take that image to silence and our musical response. So pretty, right? Just the two of you guys are just, you should be in a band together. Let's begin by stepping back in time. I want you to imagine a 3rd century Roman administrator, and this is a long sermon on paganism. It's more than a little academic, but it felt like that was the most respectful way as someone who does not identify as a pagan to approach it. But I want you to imagine this Roman administrator guy, maybe he's got one of those Roman soldier outfits on, and he sees this herbal healer, probably a woman, and sort of spits dismissively at the ground near her with the word pagani. Pagani, the root word being obviously pagan, was not initially, as we think of it, religious in nature as a distinction. It never was until fairly recently even thought of religion. It was an old world equivalent of probably calling someone a hillbilly or a hick is how it starts. But city people looking down on country folk was only the beginning of what would define pagan. And what began as a slur designed to create distance and essentially to other someone between city and country folk way back in the day is a word that came to sort of also define, if you want to use it as broadly as possible, anyone who sits outside of the monotheistic Judeo-Christian context. So religiously speaking, paganism's an odd word, not unlike love or God, that's sort of too big to have a singular meaning. Paganism grew to cover those to various degrees, participating in any kind of indigenous or earth-based or tribal-rooted practices that they would practice with their ancestors. It's not inaccurate to suggest that all local traditions that were in place while we lived as tribes are pagans, and few words are as loaded or as nuanced. What's troublesome is that built into that acknowledgement of other is not only that people are just different. The very tone of the pagan, as it's mostly used historically, has been to sort of suggest people are primitive or lost, in need of some kind of redemption, certainly in need of some civilizing, has been the way it's come out of most people's mouths, which is sad. They don't get something that we have, and there's really little of worth in what they know has been the trend. It's clear to all of us that the Roman administrator dismissing this local country healer in my imaginary little moment in time to build my sermon off of probably would later be slurred as a witch, was hardly embodying the acceptance of the empire's newly adopted Messiah, Jesus, right? We all get that. But even more, even if the dismissive administrator in this imaginary 1st or 2nd century moment isn't very nice, he does get something somewhat correct, if not morally right. In his high-mindedness, he gets that the faith of the empire would be the next generation in religious fashion. He did, as it turns out, foreshadow that in his dismissal, that I've imagined, that the repeating cycles of rituals dedicated to seasonal weather shifts, patterns of daily life and farming, the way plants grow, the slaughtering of animals that historically evolved over time, would be replaced in the collective consciousness of people by religion dedicated to a new form of time, essentially religions of history. For time would be these simple country folks would be not simple in the sense of dumb, just simple in relationship to the way they were viewed. It would be events. It would be not seasons, but time as it marched on in historical sense. Our imaginary administrator was in this little gesture, looking down on a country person, would in his unconscious way know that religion was going to become, at least in the West, and increasingly so across all the world religions, more about humans being above the natural world and more about how we related to each other than how we related to the world. The world will become a second-class citizen to an unearthly spirit, right? There would be a division. It would also foreshadow how paganism would go underground. What this Roman administrator would not likely have been aware of, that there was a bunch of wisdom being squelched there. It took about 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago for any of that to come back. So when you celebrate paganism, or even use that phrase in any kind of positive way, you're tapping back into the concerns of people who mostly lived before electricity and science, indoor heating, a time when the sun going down meant less light, less food after a while, more cold, and to a time when questions about how and when food would grow and how animals were doing was very much a spiritual and important matter. Concerns we over the last few hundred years, but even 1,000 years, came to see as too earthly, too primitive for our spiritual concerns. But not for long, and as we are starting to know, not anymore. Paganism's roots grow at a time when prayers and rituals designed for the sun's return were real. You see this clearly in the look at most of the rituals that we have now. I'm going to sort of march us through the wheel of the year as in its most common forms. Most of the pagan sort of celebrations that we talk about come from a connection to the sun. Major and minor holidays of the pagan year are mostly all Sabbats, Shabbats, or Sabats, and there's 4 of these. They get divided, it gets a little clumsy, but bear with me here. The 4 major ones are Samhain, which we think of as Halloween, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lunasa. They're 4 different flavors of pagans celebrated at different times, but for our purposes, celebrated on the first day of the month, as we generally think of as initiating the next season. Don't hold me to this, I'm generalizing from multiple traditions here. November for winter, Halloween, right? February for spring, May for summer, August for the start of fall. So it's the early part of those seasons. These holidays are excellent examples of how paganism has itself shifted and unified and joined in with the kind of collective Roman and Julian calendar. Although it's not that simple, Germanic tribes associated with the solstice are connected to the solstice, and Mediterranean cultures generally pick up on the equinoxes and hold them in different levels of worth. They get interrupted, they get moved around. The traditions of the Celts, where in part we inherit most of their meanings. So, Shabbats are holidays that are connected to the sun. Think about that, S. For these, there's the most sun, the least sun, and the in-between. It's not that complicated, really. It's simple enough, right? Winter solstice or Yule is the most famous of these, arriving just before Christmas, right? Right there at the solstice. And there's and the interesting thing about the Yule is that it's the return of the sun. It enters the coldest time for us, but it's actually the return of the sun. It's the waxing or the oak sun begins. And the summer solstice, when it's just right at the heart of the deepest, longest days of summer, the pagans have sort of declaimed it to be the waning of the sun, right? So it's odd. You get this most of the summer still. You got most of the good weather for us in the west and in the north here, but you've got those. And then there's holidays. The spring equinox is connected to Ostera, which of course we get Easter from. And then there's holidays like Mabon that fall in the fall. Samhain is the beginning and the end of the calendar, if you think of it in many pagan terms. That we get this from the Celts of Ireland and sort of the northern people in France. It's our Halloween, essentially. And it's a time when the spirits could pass through the Mediterranean worlds. We've all heard this a lot of times. It's sort of a new emerging awareness. It's a time when the other world and the veil between our world are at its thinnest. Samhain is the first and end of the year, like I said. It's a custom for herders to cull the weaker of the animals at that time who would not survive the winter. It's a very feast-oriented time. There's a lot of plenty from the harvest, even though it's starting to get cold. And then at Yule, or our Christmas, the solstice of Yule, you get Yule logs that have been historically lit. The Christmas tree comes from Paleo-pagan European history. We get that. We've got taking from the Romans, we have taken the holidays of Mithras, which was a reincarnating god, and the feast of Saturnalia. Christianity sort of took those and put the birth of Christ on those dates because they were similar in tone and celebratory in their own way. As January turns to February, you have the festival of Imbolc, which is connected to a goddess's name, but it's also in the Christian sense been usurped to be a Saint Bridget. If anyone comes from Catholic history, you would know that. So it's also connected to American Groundhog Day in a weird way. It can be connected back. Candlemas is connected to this holiday. And then again, you have Ostera, also known as the Festival of the Trees. It was connected to the feast of Astarte, and the Babylonian goddess of Istar. Can you feel how they all sort of just merge and get readopted? To sort them out well, beyond my pay grade and beyond your patience. This is going to test your patience already, so there we are. In Beltane, which is May Day, the communists pick up these festivals of May Day. It's a very sort of an animated, frivolous time. In the Jewish tradition, the closest connection would be Purim, and sort of a celebratory, free-form, kind of mischievous holiday. Beltane is connected to the arrival of the sun god Belanos, and there was a lot of sort of fertility, like it was sort of like a time of kind of like promiscuous sexual activity from a Christian perspective, like very like festive and spring-like in its ways. The opposite being Halloween, right? Right? It's the death of things, it's the life of things. In late June, there's the summer solstice, or Letha, or St. John's Day. It's the longest day of the year. It's a time to celebrate a goddess, Mother Earth. And then in August, there's Lunasa, which is in England an apple festival. It's the start of 3 festivals that celebrate grain and autumn, as it sort of makes sense, right? You can feel the difference here, right? When you place these holidays up against the wheel of the year of the traditional ones that we would in the West celebrate, you can feel the kind of differences, right? You've got forgiveness, repentance. At Yom Kippur, you've got the honoring of Jesus and the resurrection. You've got these historical moments like Hanukkah. You've got saints like St. Patrick being honored. Can you feel the difference between historical moments and people and human relationships in relationship to the honoring of the seasons and the cycle of the earth? That's the fundamental difference, is that the Judeo-Christian monotheistic world pulled in human sort of civilized behavior into religion in a way and lost that connection to the earth that was there beforehand. A lot of stuff has pagan roots, of course. You can feel that seasonal sense. For anybody concerned about climate change, and I hope we all are, and the planet that's changing, it's part why paganism has had its renewal, of course. It makes it one of the most contemporary religions in a weird way. And it's funny how it came back. Hardly anyone about 3-4 generations ago, for a long, long time, living in any kind of contemporary civilized sort of Western culture, would have identified themselves as a pagan, Wicca, Druid, or shaman. But literally that has come alive. Your great-grandparents would never probably have called themselves pagans. If they would, they were a very unique slice of people. Pagan traditions tend to focus more on being gender balanced, right? Kind of challenging patriarchy. They're more focused on natural cycles. That old voice that divinity was eminent in things rather than above things, right? Inside rather than over is a big focus in terms of returning to paganism. We might pause to think about how cool and ironic it is that paganism was born back from the act of a few religious scholars. There's a guy named Gardner who in the 30s wrote some books, and then there was a person named Margaret Murray, a man, who published 2 books called The Witch Cult of Western Europe and The God of the Witches. People wonder whether these things were like sociological studies on groups of people, or they were essentially almost fantastical creations. But from that, interestingly enough, in the 30s and the 50s, came an emergence of paganism. It's almost in a way how, like Star Wars and the notion of the Force has kind of come in to sort of sneak in and help define our spirituality in a way. Wicca specifically, and paganism in general, began to blossom in the 1960s as we sort of got, there was increasing political dissent, there was an emergence of feminism and an environmental awareness, created a reaction to didactic worship, well, exactly like this. For those who feel alienated from traditional religion and its power over earth and women, paganism works. It's gone from a group of lampoon, sort of superstitious faith traditions to a meaningful, sort of honored way to practice your yearnings, not completely by any means, of course. And then you've got books in the 70s like Starhawk's The Spiral Dance. Has anyone read that? Or Margaret Adler's Drawing Down the Moon. They strengthen these ideas and clarify sort of Wicca's presence in our common culture. So I think it's just wild that as fast growing in terms of an awareness for people as any faith is, you have the internet spreading the idea that people have spirit animals. You didn't have a spirit animal when you were a child. We would have not really done that. But now we tend to think about that. And it makes me just want to tap on the television whenever I see the likes of Pat Robertson there to tell him that the goddess works in mysterious ways too. Paganism's in an interesting place because they come out of a modern need for religious innovation as sort of some of the myths die off. It's an attempt to draw some new ideas back in. And paganism comes with a thousand different permutations, right? There is the concerns with the elements of earth like fire, water, air, right? You see that in Greek talk. You also have the Native American concern with northwest, east, south, right? Directional, very spatial. You've also got connections to the pantheons of like the Greek gods and the Norse gods. Like it's too big a category to be meaningful. And there obviously is no singular voice or theme. When one thinks about pagan, you can completely accurately think about a feathered warrior on the plains, a modern Native American reclaiming and holding those traditions. You can think about an ancient robed druid priestess, and you could think about a brightly colored Shinto priest in Japan, all sort of accurately definable under that broader banner. Tarot cards, astrology, the I Ching. You get images of it now more with Harry Potter, Star Trek, and even The Lord of the Rings. In terms of personality, most modern pagans are open-minded. They're generally intellectual in nature, and they're skeptical of the West's traditional paradigms around medicine and theology and reality. They're sort of contrarians and thoughtful people with a critique on their brain. Often, not always. I'm just generalizing, of course. Under the pagan banner come the ideas of Wiccans and Druids, Native Americans, and the broad range of shamanic traditions. Wicca, probably of which the term witch or witchcraft has its root, is probably the most famous of those now, the most popular of those now. It's, you can skip the frogs and the sort of black hats and think about smaller communities of covens. Covens being sort of social, almost familial communities, smaller gatherings, not meeting on a weekly schedule, right? Not meeting on that level of calendar schedule. To modern pagans, magic is not so much about curses or the capacity to pull a rabbit out of a hat, as much as it is about understanding the ways that positive thinking and visualization and ritual and meditation actually work. Those who practice the wise craft, as Wiccan is often associated with, are quick to suggest the pentacle, right, or the pentagram, not a symbol of satanic worship, but an ancient symbol that's been passed down, associated with any number of different ideas. Again, air, water, fire, spirit, lots of honors. And when the pentagram is put in a circle, it's sort of thought to gather balance from the circle. That's a common theme. Druid spirituality, you think about the Celts, they're part of that history too. Druids, I think of them as sort of the original tree huggers and water worshipers. They saw in many natural things like kind of magical or like, powers, and would throw valuable things like coins and metals and swords into water to purify them. They're often associated with Stonehenge, but that actually even predates most of who we thought of as the Celts. Increasingly, though, if you think about it, this is always fun to see an Elks Lodge or a Moose Lodge. That historically comes out of that Druid tradition. Those lodges are part of that legacy of the fraternal groups that are there. And shamanism, the chief source of that, we think about people drumming, physically challenging and altering their consciousness with sweat lodge and sometimes the use of drugs in places. We know that we think of it maybe as more commonly as the sort of Native American medicine man, but the word comes from Siberia and the chief source of the wisdom from people from that part of the world. Paganism is being rediscovered, reconceived. It's catching up and sort of being redefined at the exact same time. No doubt part of pagans' appeal in our technological age is a return to a more simple, more dynamic, less broken up period of time from that science often provides. And having its origins back before Gnostic and Platonic ideas really got their hands on Christianity and Judaism, much of what we see has happened in those faith traditions is that they got the idea that matter is poor and spirit is good, right? We feel that. There's a dualism. Paganism generally rejects that dualism of body bad, earth, body bad, spirit good, earth, a crumbled version of a higher heavenly realm that's like we are called to. Let's return to that scene on the road in Italy where the urban administrator is dismissing that rural woman. He foreshadowed that religious practices would grow out of touch with the trend of history. Well, what he could not have seen 2,000 years ago in this imaginary scene was that there'd be a patriarchal and an industrial and an oppressive association with the faiths of Christianity in particular that will begin to feel corrupt to many and untrue. Nobody on that rural road could have foreseen what would happen. But paganism is in a way a cousin to Unitarian Universalism in that it's trying to claim portions of what's the past and bring it forward to the modern moment, right? And have us take those core compassionate principles of stories that many of us don't believe the myths of anymore and reinterpret them. Paganism is on its own reinterpretive journey. And paganism will probably come to be essential for taking the backstory page of our earthly lives and beginning to make it feel front page again. With its obvious strength of being earthly and experiential, it has some limitations of not being very systematic or necessarily scientifically current. It's not hard to critique it. Paganism's image that return us to an appropriate relationship with the land does not do so with this understanding of the vastness of space, right? That's new knowledge that's yet to be incorporated in. But like all icons, pagans' traditions we inherit come from Northern Europeans, and that's some of its limitations too, 3,000 to 5,000 years ago mostly. So it's going to need to be continually readopted. We need more of it. We need it to adapt. In short, paganism redeems us from 1,000 or more years of hating matter and our sensual selves, but it doesn't necessarily help us reinterpret a world that we are reinterpreting at the same time. But it is part of that journey. It is part of maybe how we spiritually become whole again. I hope not too boring. Amen. Catherine's going to make us laugh and loosen up our wallets.
A rabbi, a UU minister, and a Wiccan priestess decide to go on a fishing trip together. They go down to their local lake, rent a boat, and go out onto the lake for a day of fishing. As the afternoon approached, the trio became hungry and realized that they had left their lunches on the shore of the lake.
The minister gets out of the boat, walks across the lake gets his lunch and comes back, sits down and starts to eat just his lunch.
You should have gotten all of our lunches, scolds the priestess. She then gets up, walks across the lake, picks up her lunch as well as the rabbi's, walks back across the lake, and sits down, handing the rabbi his afternoon meal.
The rabbi at this point, almost out of his mind, having watched two people walk across the lake, was in shock. Finally manages to sputter out, how did you... To which the minister says to the priestess, do you think we should tell him about the rocks? To which the priestess says,
What rocks? What rocks?
give generously.
We know within. But we know we will. We know road may be muddy and rough. How we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah, whoa, yeah, yeah, whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah, whoa, yeah, yeah, whoa, yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Lord, we know, but the road may be muddy and rough. Get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 oh 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 yeah, yeah.
Okay, hold on a second, we gotta do this.
Okay.
We have to do him yet. Let's.
Our closing hymn is We Are a Gentle, Angry People. Focused on the angry part. No, kidding.
We are a gentle, angry
and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Oh, we are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences, beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam, namaste, and blessed be. And now our service truly begins, or at least should.
He's got the whole world in his hands. 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 Hey, he's got everybody here now in his hands. He's got everybody here
In his hands,
everybody here
in his hands,
got the whole world in his hands. He's got the itty bitty baby, yeah.
in his hands,
He's got the itty bitty baby, yeah.
in his hands,
He's got the
In his hand.
He's got 7
In
his hands. He's got family.
In
In
his
his hands. He's
got
got
the whole world in his
hands. He's got Sarah and his family.
in his
Oh, he's
hand.
got Sarah and his family.
In his hand.
He's got Sarah and his family.
In his
Oh,
hand.
he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the choir members' family.
In his
Oh, he's
hand.
got the choir members' family.
In his
He's got
hand.
the choir members' family.
In his
Oh, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brother.
in his
Oh, he's got you and me, sister.
in his
Oh, he's got everybody here.
in his hand.
He's got the whole world in his hands. Whole world.
In his hand. In his hand. In his hand.
He's got the whole world in his hands.
And we're going to get him on too. In his hand. In his hand. In his hands. In his
Yeah. All the new members are encouraged to go over and get a picture taken by the cake. That's a calorie-free cake today.